Hello, AP Biology students. We're going to go over the 8th section in Unit 4. And in this section, we're going to cover the topic about cancer. I know this is a little bit late for a trigger warning, but we are going to be discussing the concepts behind what cancer is. I know that can be difficult for some students because they might be dealing with somebody that has cancer or dealing with cancer itself. I think it's really important for people to have a good understanding and understand what something is to help them better make decisions about that difficult subject matter later on in life. Whenever I talk about cancer, I like to show this graph. This graph shows the rates of cancers among certain age groups between males and females. And as you can tell, early on, there are low rates of cancer in people that are under the age of, say, 30. As we look at the older age groups above 30, 40, 50, and 60, the chances of cancer drastically increase. Yes, there are still occurrences of childhood cancer, but they are very rare. Typically, what happens is a person will accumulate damage to their DNA or mutations, and then over time, that person will develop cancer. Cancer, however, is uncontrolled cell growth, and it's caused by mutations on genes that control the cell division. Now, these mutations can be caused by genetic inheritance or by carcinogens. I like this diagram that shows it's not just one DNA damage or mutation that would cause a cell to become cancerous. It's typically many mutations over long periods of time that causes a cell to become cancerous. But each cancer is different, and every mutation is really different in how it causes a cell to become cancerous. Now, there are two different types of genes that I like to talk about when talking about cancer, which are proto-oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. Proto-oncogenes are genes that will initiate the cell to go into the cell cycle or to divide. This would be like the gas pedal of a car, and if it's mutated, you can think of a gas pedal always being on. That car will drive into this barrier, which is called cancer. On the other hand, tumor suppressor genes are genes that will inhibit the cell from entering mitosis. When these genes are mutated, it's like the brakes of a car not working. Obviously, those brakes won't stop the car from entering mitosis and crashing into this wall of cancer. Like I said before, carcinogens are cancer-causing substances that can lead to mutations in DNA. And there are a lot of different types of carcinogens, as you can see in this pie chart above. I like to remind students that just because you expose yourself to the carcinogen once doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a mutation that causes your DNA to mutate. What these carcinogens do is they increase the likelihood that a mutation will occur that can lead to cancer. And there are a lot of different forms of carcinogens, that being radiation, smoking, unhealthy drinking or eating, and even your environment that you are exposed to. Again, just because you get sunburnt once doesn't mean you're automatically going to get skin cancer. What that sunburn does, though, is it increases your risk of developing cancer. These carcinogens are ranked in different groups by the likelihood that they will cause meaningful changes in your DNA that could lead to cancer. I also like to show this graph when looking at cancer. You can see the cigarette consumption in men rising in the early 1900s, and then around 20 years after, lung cancer also drastically increasing. This is again because it takes time for these mutations to accumulate and for cancer to develop. So after 20 years of smoking, these individuals accumulated enough mutations where it caused their cells to become cancerous. Now, we call a cancerous mass of cells a tumor. Benign tumors are cancers that don't spread, while malignant tumors are cancers that do spread. This spreading is called metastasis, and this is when cancer moves around the body, causing the cancer to accumulate in different organs. This is typically done through the circulatory system, and it's something that doctors try to prevent from happening because it makes treating that person's cancer a lot more difficult. If you think of cancer like a forest fire, we want to contain the fire to one location because if it spreads to different locations, we're fighting a fire on different fronts, and it's more difficult for the firefighters to control that spread and to control that fire. Angiogenesis is the formation of blood vessels into the tumor, which allows the cancer to spread and get more nutrients to grow. This is something that doctors again try to prevent because once the cancer starts spreading, it becomes harder to treat. Why does cancer actually kill a person? Well, cancer cells lack the differentiation they need to become specialized or to function in the organ. So what will happen is those cancer cells will eventually lead to the loss of function of that organ and tissue, which can be very detrimental. For example, if you have liver cancer, that cancer tumor will eventually shut down your liver, and without your liver, you can't survive. Something I like to add in here about cancer and why it's so difficult to treat is that cancer cells are like 99% the same as normal cells. So trying to kill your cancer cells while leaving your healthy cells is very difficult because they are very genetically similar. In the past, and even till this current day, we've used some very invasive ways to kill these cancer cells. Chemotherapy and radiation being one of them, which kills the cancer cells, but it also kills healthy cells. We also have surgery, which is also very invasive, and it doesn't always work. Now we're moving to immunotherapy, where we're trying to train a person's immune system to target the cells and kill them on their own, which is a lot less invasive. We've seen a lot more success with this type of therapy, but again, it's more expensive, but it's targeted to a single person.